History is not made by time. It is made by choices. Some build empires, some destroy them, but every story leaves a lesson. If you seek power, if you seek wisdom, if you seek truth buried beneath the dust of centuries, then your journey has just begun. Subscribe and witness the rise and fall of greatness. For more than 300 years, one family ruled the largest empire on Earth. An empire that stretched from the frozen Baltic shores to the edge of Alaska, from the golden domes of Moscow to the endless Siberian wilderness. This is the story of the Romanovs, a dynasty crowned in glory and buried in tragedy. For 3 centuries, they believed their rule was eternal. But history has one rule above all others. No throne stands forever. And in the frozen night of 1918, an empire ended. Before the Romanovs became symbols of power, before palaces glittered with gold, before emperors commanded armies across continents, Russia was drowning. The year is 1613. For over a decade, the land has been trapped in chaos. A nightmare history would call the time of troubles. Famine starved the countryside. Foreign armies invaded from the west. Impostors claimed the throne. Boyars betrayed each other. The throne of Russia stood empty. And an empty throne is the most dangerous thing in the world. Far from Moscow's power struggles, in a quiet monastery near Kostroma, a frightened teenager prayed for safety. His name was Michael I of Russia. He was only 16. Shy, reserved, unprepared. His father was a church leader. His family had once been noble, but politics had nearly destroyed them. Michael did not dream of ruling an empire. He dreamed of surviving. Then one day, armed nobles and church officials arrived at the monastery gates. They knelt before him. They begged him to accept the crown. Russia needed stability. Russia needed unity. Russia needed a Romanov. Michael wept. He refused at first, but the delegation insisted. If you do not accept, Russia may collapse forever. And so, trembling, the boy said yes. In 1613, Michael was crowned Tsar, not with triumphant cheers, but with desperate hope. He inherited a broken country, bankrupt, invaded, divided. His first years were not about glory. They were about survival. He negotiated peace with Sweden. He pushed back Polish forces. He slowly restored order. Step by step, famine lessened. Trade reopened. Law returned. It was not dramatic. It was not glamorous, but it was necessary. And sometimes, the greatest rulers are not the loudest, but the most patient. Michael ruled for 32 years. By the time he died, Russia was stable again, and the Romanov name had become permanent. From Michael onward, the Romanovs embraced a powerful belief. The Tsar was chosen by God, not elected, not appointed, but divinely placed. This belief would strengthen their authority for centuries. It would also blind them, because when rulers believe they answer only to heaven, they often stop listening to the earth beneath them. After Michael came his son, Alexis I. Then more Romanovs followed. With each generation, the empire grew stronger. Forests were cleared. Cities expanded. Armies strengthened. Russia stretched across Eurasia like a sleeping giant. But giants are restless. And soon, a Romanov would awaken Russia with force. By the late 1600s, Russia lagged behind Western Europe. Its military outdated. Its navy nearly non-existent. Its culture isolated. Other European powers modernized rapidly. Russia risked becoming irrelevant. Then in 1682, a new Tsar rose. Young, energetic, and dangerously ambitious. His name was Peter, and history would remember him as Peter the Great. Peter was unlike his ancestors. He was nearly 7 feet tall, curious, restless, obsessive. He hated weakness. He believed Russia must transform or perish. So he did something no other Tsar had done. He left Russia. Disguised as a common laborer, Peter traveled through Europe. He worked in shipyards in the Dutch Republic, studied military tactics in England, learned science and engineering. He saw firsthand what Russia lacked, and when he returned home, he brought change like a storm. Peter did not ask for reform. He demanded it. He ordered nobles to shave their traditional beards. He forced them to wear Western clothing. He reorganized the army. He built Russia's first powerful navy. Many resisted. He crushed them. Thousands died building his dream city, St. Petersburg, carved from swamp and ice. But Peter did not see tragedy. He saw progress. Under his rule, Russia defeated Sweden in the Great Northern War. For the first time, Russia became a major European power. The Romanovs were no longer stabilizers of chaos. They were architects of empire. Yet every reform came with blood. Taxes increased. Peasants suffered. Traditions were broken. Peter strengthened Russia's position in the world. But he also strengthened the idea that Romanov power was absolute, unquestionable. And absolute power, once normalized, rarely retreats. After Peter, rulers would rise and fall, some strong, some weak. But the dynasty endured. Then came one of its most fascinating figures, Catherine the Great, a foreign princess who would seize power in a palace coup. Under her rule, Russia expanded dramatically. Art flourished. Education improved. The empire grew vast and wealthy. From a struggling state in 1613, Russia had become one of the most powerful empires on earth, all under Romanov rule. For over a century, the dynasty appeared unstoppable. 300 years of continuity, 300 years of divine confidence. But beneath golden palaces and military parades, the same question lingered. What happens when the people stop believing? The Romanovs had survived invasions, survived civil war, survived political betrayal, but they had never faced something far more powerful: mass revolution. The seeds of that revolution were planted long before the final czar. They were planted the moment rulers believed their throne could never fall. From a frightened boy in a monastery to emperors commanding continents, the Romanov story began with humility, but it would not end that way. In 1613, a teenager saved Russia from collapse. He did not know he was founding a dynasty that would last 3 centuries. He did not know that one day, another Romanov child, a boy named Alexei, would sit in a dark basement, awaiting a fate history would never forget. Empires are born quietly, they grow loudly, and they fall suddenly. The Romanovs had risen, but the clock had already begun ticking. 300 years. That is how long the Romanovs ruled Russia. From a frightened boy in a monastery to emperors commanding armies across continents. They believed their throne was eternal, but eternity is fragile. And in the early 20th century, the Romanov Empire was already cracking beneath its own weight. That on the throne sat Nicholas II of Russia. He was not cruel. He was not monstrous. He was not mad. He was simply unprepared. Nicholas loved his wife deeply. He adored his children. He believed with absolute certainty that God had chosen him to rule. But love does not win wars, and faith does not silence hunger. Russia was industrializing rapidly. Workers crowded into factories under brutal conditions. Strikes erupted. Protests grew. Then came 1905. The first revolution. Peaceful demonstrators marched toward the Winter Palace asking for reform. Soldiers opened fire. The event would be remembered as Bloody Sunday. From that moment on, something invisible shattered. The people's trust. The dynasty's future rested on one fragile child. Alexei Nikolaevich Tsarevich of Russia. He was bright, playful, brave beyond his years. But he carried a secret that could destroy the monarchy. Hemophilia, a disease that meant even a small bruise could lead to death. Every fall was terror. Every cut was panic. The Empress, Alexandra, lived in constant fear of losing her only son, the heir to the throne. Desperation makes people vulnerable. And into that desperation walked a mystic from Siberia. His name was Grigory Rasputin. Unkempt, intense, hypnotic. When doctors failed to ease Alexei's suffering, Rasputin prayed. And somehow, the bleeding stopped. To Alexandra, it was divine intervention. To the Russian public, it was scandal. Rumors spread that Rasputin controlled the throne, that he influenced government decisions, that he corrupted the royal family. Whether true or exaggerated, perception became reality. In 1916, aristocrats assassinated Rasputin, poisoning him, shooting him, throwing him into an icy river. But killing Rasputin did not save the monarchy. It only proved how desperate the elite had become. Then came World War I. Nicholas left the capital to command the army personally. It was a fatal mistake. Russia suffered devastating losses. Millions died. Food shortages intensified. Inflation soared. In Petrograd, people stood in bread lines for hours. When workers protested in 1917, soldiers were ordered to suppress them. But this time, they refused. The army mutinied. And without the army, a czar is nothing. Under immense pressure, Nicholas signed his abdication. For the first time since 1613, there was no Romanov on the throne. 3 centuries ended with a signature. The royal family was placed under house arrest. At first, they believed exile would follow. Perhaps Britain, perhaps another European court. But politics shifted quickly. Revolutionaries known as the Bolsheviks seized power. Led by Vladimir Lenin, they had no intention of restoring monarchy. The Romanovs were moved deep into the Ural Mountains, to a house in Ekaterinburg. The windows were painted shut. Guards watched their every move. Nicholas chopped wood. The daughters sewed. Alexei grew weaker. They prayed daily, still believing, still hoping. He read a short statement. The Ural Soviet has decided to execute you. Nicholas barely had time to react. Gunshots erupted. Chaos filled the small room. Smoke, screams, echoes. It did not end quickly. The daughters had sewn jewels into their clothing. The gems deflected bullets. Bayonets were used. And then, silence. Nicholas, Alexandra, Olga, Tatiana, Maria, Anastasia, and young Alexei, all gone. The bodies were hidden, buried secretly. For years, rumors spread that one daughter survived. But history would later confirm the truth. The Romanov line had ended. Not in battle, not in exile, but in a basement. Today, on the site of their execution, stands the church on the blood. Pilgrims visit. Candles burn. In 2000, the Russian Orthodox Church canonized the family as passion bearers. History transformed them, from rulers to martyrs. But their fall remains a warning. Power without reform breeds resentment. Isolation breeds ignorance. And belief in divine right cannot silence human suffering forever. 300 years. From Michael I of Russia to young Alexei Nikolaevich Tsarevich of Russia. An empire born in chaos. Strengthened through ambition. Destroyed by change it refused to understand. Empires do not die because they are weak. They die because they cannot adapt. Music swells, choir rises. And in the cold silence of that basement in 1918, the age of kings ended.